And now, ladies and gentlemen, we come to the interesting parts of this little discussion about this is something that is raised that I think is going to be quite a bit of an eye opener. Brexiteer Daniel Hannan wants to help his rich mates at your expense. Something that, to be honest, that Brexit has done absolutely nothing for since, and is probably going to escalate. All the while, resources in other aspects of this country are going to be depleted, ignored, expunged, and we're just going to be told, well, look over there instead. So let's see if this rings true and whether or not this just exposes Brexit for what it truly is. Because I've made no shame in saying this, ladies and gentlemen, but because of this whole racket about Brexit and because of Nigel Farage wanting to stir the pot how he sees it, it's caused basically nothing but havoc on British politics. And all because they thought that this was a good idea and somehow in the interests of people like Nigel Farage, not in the interests of the people in this country, which might also have something to do with the fact that the closing poll was so close, 52% to 48%. But let's see. Let's go. Let's see what happens.
Hi guys, remember Daniel Hannan? He was the guy who said back in 2015 people should feel safe in voting for Brexit because nobody was talking about leaving the single market. Daniel, of course, when making such a stupid mistake, disappeared and was never heard from again. Now, he was rewarded for his ignorance by being sent to the House of Lords, where he continues to make a fool of himself. Here in this clip, he was calling for the UK government to abandon AIFMD, which is the Alternative Investment Fund Managers Directive. It was implemented to better regulate alternative investments that were left largely unchecked prior to the 2008-2009 global financial crisis. The directive sets standards for marketing around raising private capital, remuneration policies, risk managing and reporting, as well as overall accountability. The primary goal of this directive is to protect investors as well as reduce some of the systematic risk that alternative investment funds can pose to the EU and its economy. Any manager that operates a fund in the EU is subject to AIFMD regulation, regardless of whether it's set up within or outside the European Union's borders. So why does Daniel have a problem with it?
And for all the reasons that we've just heard, this was using a sledgehammer to miss a nut. This was legislation intended as a response to the financial crisis, but as somebody put it, when there was a general melee in the bar brawl, instead of looking for the person who started it, they just hit the nearest person. I remember the unanimity in this country against the AIFMD in 2013. In the industry itself, in the city more widely, among all the political parties. I remember one of the fund managers saying, this is such a needless and costly measure that we are exploring whether just to break it and pay the fine and call that a fee. We think that that may be less intrusive than having to assimilate the compliance costs. So I assumed that the day after Brexit, this would be at the top of the list of a measure to be axed, since it had literally no support. In fact, I had assumed, rather innocently and naively, I now see, that the first response of the government after Brexit would be to go back and look at all the measures which the UK had opposed and voted against in Council, look at the departmental arguments raised against them, and then see whether those still applied. But that, I'm afraid to say, has not happened. I had underestimated what Milton Friedman calls the tyranny of the status quo, the way in which, however irrational, however arbitrary your arrangements, some people have found a way of making a living out of them and become opponents of change. And I'm afraid this is one of the dynamics that makes deregulation very difficult.
Oh my goodness. Okay, so what is he talking about here? He's talking about taking away regulations that were put in place following the financial crisis to protect investors. Now, why would he want such a thing? Isn't that insane? Yes, it sounds insane on the surface, but remember, the people in the City of London, they make massive bonuses when they take on massive risk. So if the risk is high, the potential for payout is high,
Yeah.
so the bonus is high. If the risk is low, then
the
the
bonus is not very high.
potential for payout is low and the bonus is low.
Yeah.
So what Brexit was all about, and I keep saying this and I've mentioned it before, it was twofold. It was a bit of racism for the people who were voting,
Yeah.
but the real driving force behind Brexit is deregulation. It's about taking away protections for consumers, for the environment, for, in this case, for investors. We saw in the financial crisis what happened was banks and financial institutions were taking massive risks, and there were no safeguards or very few safeguards in place. And what happened? Well, when everything went pear-shaped, who picked up the pieces? Governments, or more rightly, the taxpayer. Ordinary people ended up having to pay for somebody else's mistake, somebody else's risk. So, following the financial crisis, there was pressure on governments, rightly so, and the European Commission to do something about that, to put in place measures to stop banks and financial institutions from playing these games again, or at least reducing the chance of such risk taking place again. And what do Brexiteers want to do, like Daniel Hannan? They want to take those protections away. Why? Because his friends in the City of London can start making lots of money again. And they know that, well, if something goes wrong, well, the British taxpayer will bail us out. So instead of caring about ordinary people, caring about the taxpayer, what he wants is to take away these regulations, take away these safeguards, these protections, so that people in the City of London can make riskier investments and potentially make lots more money. And if everything goes wrong, well, don't worry, because we can rely on the taxpayer to pick up the tab.
Coming.
These are charlatans, these people, liars and charlatans. Remember in 2015 he said, don't worry, nobody's talking about leaving the single market. And of course the UK left the single market. Either he made that statement because he didn't understand Brexit, or because he did understand Brexit and was just misleading the public. Either way, he did not deserve to go to the House of Lords, and he should just shut up and keep his mouth shut, sit down and shut up, because he adds nothing to the conversation. And what he's doing here is he's trying to sell an idea that Brexit was about deregulation, which in a sense it was, for the richest in society, but that these deregulations will help ordinary people in some way. It's a sort of trickle-down economics type of theory. If we help the richest in society, then ordinary people will benefit indirectly. No, they won't. As we saw with the financial crisis, ordinary people were ending up paying for somebody else's risk. Let me know in the comment section.
That might become the epitaph for Brexit and for Daniel Hannan, and what I hope will become like evidenced throughout this series of videos, ladies and gentlemen, is that everything that came out of Brexit, we were sold absolutely nothing but lie upon deceit upon lies. And it was all designed to make very rich people very much richer, and they didn't have to accept any consequences whatsoever for what they did, whilst everybody else would have to pick up the slack. This, ladies and gentlemen, you know what? We don't even need to go as far as to say Rishi Sunak or this current government, or even Reform UK as about the ideas of fascism. Fascism began when this idea came about in the first place, because who's benefiting from all of this? Those at the very top of the tree. And who is going to suffer if they make mistakes? Everybody else. So we completely avert the idea of responsibility. Responsibility is just another word to these people. That doesn't actually have any real meaning outside of, well, we might look bad, but it doesn't actually affect anything else. So there you are. Tell me what else it was really about then. So, and I'll be waiting. And I cannot wait to see all of you guys again next time. Take care, and bye-bye for now.